We elected our first African-American president, right? We're a colorblind society, everything is hunky-dory. No, as you know, we can all tell you, we all are far busy than we would care to be, and we're still fighting this fight. So with that, I'll turn it over to Letitia and Thomas.
Want me to go?
Yeah.
That's not education, though. So Letitia Smith-Evans, I'm an attorney with the NAACP Legal Defense and Educational Fund. I primarily work in the area of education, and LDF, though, does have 4 different practice groups, including political participation, which is also known as voting rights, economic justice, and criminal justice. The criminal justice practice primarily focuses on death penalty issues, although we did recently bring a case against the New York City Housing Authority and New York City Police Department for their vertical sweeps and stops of individuals who are in public housing, on public housing grounds. So in the world of education, and Mr. Cartagena obviously, you know, took it away, but I'll just tell you give you some on-the-ground examples of what I see. Last week I was in Louisiana, and I was arguing a case in the district court there in a school district that is asserting that they had been declared unitary. And when I say that, that means that they have eliminated the vestiges of de jure segregation, which means they're no longer segregated by law. They've eliminated those vestiges, which was mandated by Brown. Okay, so Brown versus Board of Education, 1954, we hear that separate but equal is inherently unequal. And in 1955, we heard Brown 2, the Supreme Court basically said all school districts had to desegregate with all deliberate speed. And as Jose mentioned, some almost 60 years later, there are many, in fact, over 200 school districts in this nation that have not been declared unitary or that are still under court order to actually desegregate under the order from Brown. So this school system basically said in 1974, the judge ordered that we were declared unitary. Total lie. I mean, it's a lie. And when we look at the data today, we see, for example, their gifted and talented programs. The district is nearly 47% African American. There's not one African American student in gifted and talented programs in that entire school district. We see, with respect to discipline statistics, although again there are approximately 47% African American students in the district, we see close to 70-something% of the students who are being suspended, both in school and out of school suspensions, are African American. So these are the disparities that we're seeing. I have a case in Alabama, and in that case, that school system, let me just back up for a second. When courts are looking to determine whether or not a district has actually eliminated the dual school system, so one for black kids, one for white kids, they look at a number of factors. They look at least 6 factors. Those are facilities, transportation, extracurricular activities, faculty assignment, staff assignment, and student assignment. Then there are a host of ancillary factors that a court will also look to, including discipline, curriculum, and other things that you might think of and compare whether or not it could be resources as well, whether or not they're equal. So this school system in Alabama, when we go to this school system, there's one predominantly African-American high school, and there are about three predominantly white high schools in the district. Very segregated, and there's a court order, there are a number of court orders in place that govern the factors that I just discussed with you. So, for example, student assignment. There's a court order that says you, school district, cannot allow students to skip zones. So they basically are trying to get around going to the school for which they're zoned. You spoke about school zones earlier today. So if I'm a white student and I live in the predominantly black school zone, I should be going to that school, right? And that's designed to further desegregate the school, the classrooms, so that they're integrated. But what we see is that a lot of students who are zoned for the African American zone are skipping the zone. And the school district is like closing their eyes. They're turning away and allowing them to do this. Or when the parents submit the required forms to ask for the student to be moved to another zone, the school district will rubber stamp it. For example, I looked at one form and the excuse was that my child has anxiety attacks. And I'm thinking, what, from seeing black kids? Like, what are the anxiety attacks from? Why can't they go to this school? And the school district permitted that transfer to a predominantly white school. So in the area of facilities, what we would see is Okay, let me just give you, okay, so one high school, one predominantly white high school in the district, they have an underground passageway and they have locker rooms. I've never seen a school like this in my life. They have a locker room for every team, JV and varsity. So they have like a JV cheerleading team locker room, a varsity cheerleading team locker room, like a JV fencing team locker room. Like it's 20 locker rooms in this underground facility. Gorgeous, okay? The African American school, the students are like changing in another like classroom building, basically. They're changing in like the ROTC building to change and get ready for their home games. So part of the order is that they had to build a new stadium at this school. That was supposed to have been done in 2009. It's now 2012 and it's still not completed, right? So, and when they are completing, while they're completing this project, I was down there a couple of months ago, they are trying to cut a number of corners. So where you'd see them building a field house at a predominantly white school, they're not building a field house at all at the African American school. And when I look at the state's plans that they've the district's plan that they've submitted to the state regarding how much funding they're going to spend in this African American school zone, it is significantly less. For example, you'll see, okay, let's say there's a list of 20 items that they prioritized and submitted to the state. A number of those items will be like building a new lunchroom for $2.2 million at a predominantly white school. For the middle school, building a lunchroom for the lower school for $2.2 million at the predominantly white school. For the African American school zone, the total amount was under $1 million. And it was just incredible because when you walk in the school building and knock on the wall, like it's a hollow sound because it's like wood plated versus every other school, which is like cement. I mean, like constructed very well. So those are significant disparities that we see. Let me tell you about Mississippi. There's a school district there, and the disparity there is really about discipline, also facilities, but the discipline issue is significant because when we went on a school visit, and I should say that Mississippi believes in corporal punishment. They permit that there. So when we went and interviewed the school leaders, we were asking about the rates, discipline rates, corporal punishment, in-school suspension, out-of-school suspension. I gotta tell you, when I asked how many times, and this was in November, how many times since the beginning of the school year have you administered corporal punishment, to students? And we always ask these questions broken down by race. The assistant principal, who primarily is charged with doing that, he was just like, oh, I don't know. I mean, I was like 20 times, 50 times, like, I'm giving him numbers now. And he's like, I mean, maybe 75. And I'm thinking, you're beating the kid every day. Like, I was just like, how could this be necessary in this, in this situation? And this is, let me just tell you what they will do in this school district. If a parent says, I don't want you administering corporal punishment to my child, they'll suspend the child. So they will kick them out of school, right? And I'm gonna just give you this quick story, and then you guys can ask questions or we can move on. This school district had elected a homecoming queen. She was African American. She was an honor student. She was a cheerleader. She had been recruited and received scholarships for cheering at a number of different universities down in Mississippi. She was in the gymnasium one day, and she said she had a cell phone, which she's not supposed to have. There's a cell phone policy in the district that says if you get caught with a cell phone, they will take it away from you, and your parent picks it up at the end of the school year. So that's the punishment. You don't have your phone for the rest of the school year, right? There's no suspension attached to that. There's no expulsion attached to that. So the principal is at the bottom of the bleachers. She's at the top. He sees something silver reflect, and he says, bring it to me. So she walks down the bleachers, hands him the phone. He says, no, I saw an iPod. She says, I don't own an iPod. You can search my bag. You can search me. This is my cell phone. He said no. Took her to the office, called her mother to come pick her up. Because her mother, again, was like, you're not administering corporal punishment to my daughter. So the mother comes and says she doesn't have an iPod. I've never bought one for her. The only phone that she has is the one that you have in your possession. I can search her in front of you here. He refused. So she received an automatic 5-day suspension from the school. And at the end of the 5 days, her mother was required, well, not required, but they were required to hold a hearing under the law. The school district was. Her mother said, can we have the hearing either in the evening or in the morning because I have to work at the time that this hearing is set. Principal says, no, we're not changing the time of the hearing. So now this is a due process issue. I'm sure you guys have heard about due process. So the hearing is held. The mother never receives notification of what happened at the hearing. The hearing was held on a Friday. She brings her daughter to school on Monday after the 5-day suspension. They say, well, she's actually been sentenced to the alternative school for a period of 45 days. That was the result of the hearing, okay? So, and this is all because she supposedly is lying and not turning in this iPod or whatever the principal said that he saw. So, you know, they contacted us. We were down for a visit. We touched base with the school district, and we immediately said we're requesting that she be removed from this. And she was also stripped of her title, crown, couldn't cheer anymore. So everything, honors, no more honors classes, everything was stripped from her, okay? And think about it, 45 days in public school is over 2 months, right? It's only 20 school days in a month. What is it, 5 days a week? 4 weeks? That's